And we are kind of seeing them move up right now in tandem with the key stakeholders. So it's actually the massive wallets, the 10K or more, that are dumping to everybody else right now. So everyone else is trying to accumulate more. I'm still a little worried about this tiny little drop, but the bigger worry is that retailers are getting a little greedy here, believing that this is the dip to buy.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. Joining me is Brian from Sentiment, and as you all know, we're going to do a deep dive into the metrics around Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, Solana, and much more to see what is happening in this bull market and what may happen next. Brian, good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Tony. It's the Trump and Elon show this week, and all eyes are on them.
Yeah, it's funny that popped up, and of course it's going to affect markets. The world's richest man, the world's most powerful man, battling, and as the topic is, of course, on the debt bill, or I shouldn't say the debt bill, even though that's what it is, the spending bill, and that's going to have an effect on markets. But it's crazy. I don't know if this is all a show or it's legit.
Yeah, I think everyone has their own opinions. A lot of people are just spamming popcorn emojis because the drama is too good to be true for them. Regardless of how people feel about Trump and or Elon Musk, when you see two of the most powerful people in the world suddenly engaging in a very public he said, she said, it causes havoc and it creates chaos that makes markets even more unpredictable on top of all of the tariff stuff that still exists and has existed the last 2 months.
Yeah, this is such a weird period, man. I am trying to, like, in principle, I understand I view things from a macro perspective. So I'm not like losing sleep. I'm not nervous or anything like that. But it's also like, God, this is so annoying. Like all these things that are happening, the tariff uncertainty pushed the natural correction out of Q4 way down than we expected. We V-shaped recovered out of it. Then you have this happen, and then Bitcoin's pulling back. So it's crazy, man.
I would at least argue that this is not nearly on the same level as the tariff announcement, right, or even the drama with Jerome Powell, right? Even though Elon Musk is much more well known and more powerful in a different way than Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell directly has to do with the interest rates of the most prominent country in the world to most people. And that's still a much bigger deal than, however petty you think this drama is between Elon and Trump. It's more of a, the main sidekick that everyone knew was in Trump's corner is no longer in his corner. And what's that going to do? But no one quite knows exactly. It's just kind of like a bit of a shakeup. I think that's how most people are interpreting it right now.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I've been looking at the Bitcoin chart, and on the daily, like just as an example, just one metric, but the RSI has been in a downtrend. So we expected some sort of pullback on the price, but with something like this happening, be a catalyst to drive even further down than we anticipated, right? So maybe on that note, we could start looking at some Bitcoin metrics and what you're seeing as far as sentiment. Are people turning bearish? Are they getting fearful? I see some calls out there. The top is in, and it's just interesting how people are reacting to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the how our feeds look versus the reality when we scrape all of the data all together, and it's actually not that bad in either direction. People are pretty neutral right now. Granted, this is kind of just the 1 day look. If I reduce it to like 4 hours, we'll see a lot more noise, and there is a pretty big spike right here. However, it doesn't look it doesn't look like there's anything super euphoria related. The last time we really saw that was, arguably around May 13th or after the real rebound around April 24th, 25th. So I don't see people being too swayed by this drama either way. I think if anything, there was a bit of fear after the price dropped and people were attributing it to the Elon and Trump breakup, alleged. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to cause nearly as much chaos as some people have expressed on social media.
What are the whales doing? Because I saw on one of the on-chain metric here from Santiment, a big spike in whale accumulation, wallets with 10 or more Bitcoin, which is fascinating.
Yeah, so this is specifically the 10 to 10,000 BTC line, which is more or less the key stakeholder tier in modern days, with Bitcoin at anywhere between like 50 to whatever 112K, the all-time high. This is the tier that tends to move markets most prominently, and they went on a hell of a run between May 26th up until June 3rd, where they accumulated just about 100,000 BTC during that week. And then over the last couple of days, they dropped about a quarter of that, 26.6K. So still a good sign. I mean, you talk about the last 6 months and just draw a line like this. They're moving in the right direction. Meanwhile, what we are hoping to see is a little more dumping from the small retail traders, because just as much as this is a good correlative indicator, the 0-to-1 BTC wallets are a good counter indicator. And we are kind of seeing them move up right now in tandem with the key stakeholders. So it's actually the massive wallets, the 10K or more, that are dumping to everybody else right now. So everyone else is trying to accumulate more. I'm still a little worried about this tiny little drop, but the bigger worry is that retailers are getting a little greedy here, believing that this is the dip to buy. And historically, if the retailers believe this is the dip to buy, it's usually the next one, when they're a little more jaded and afraid to buy the dip, that is the actual dip to buy.
Interesting. So I feel like we have to give this like another week to see which direction both go in, right?
Yeah, I hate to give it kind of a wait and see, because, we all want definitive data, but this truly is such a weird time where, that 10 to 20% chance that all of this Elon and Trump stuff is orchestrated, everyone has their own opinions. That could just cause so much confusion and overreactions. And, for all we know, Trump is waiting to see how people react, and then makes a big announcement on Monday. We've seen that plenty of times with the tariffs the last few months. So it's so difficult to tell based on on-chain metrics, but we can at least say that social wise, like, all eyes are on this Elon and Trump drama. We have this new trending stories tab that's in beta. And it's all about the Epstein files stuff, because Elon came out and told everyone that Trump was on the list after their fallout happened, and then the beef between Musk and Trump here in third. So you can see just how much people are talking about it. Even Doge, because Elon mentioned that a third party could be created in the US named after Doge. Whatever your opinion is on that, there's just a lot of talk that all seems to be circulated around that, and a little bit with the Circle IPO, because it came out of the gates super hot with a 160% rise, which is super rare for the stock market.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was the day started off with the good news of that, right? And everybody's, oh man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Another crypto company goes public, and then you had the Elon Trump drama just overshadow everything.
Of course, yeah.
One of the metrics we looked at last time was the MVRV, if I'm not mistaken, around Bitcoin. I'm curious what that looks like.
Yeah, let's look at how average traders are doing right now, because in a zero-sum game, as we've talked about in previous calls, Tony, you want to see the MVRVs mostly in negative range, where traders are not profiting, therefore you'd be buying in at less risk. But right now, the 30-day is sitting right at about zero. So it's about as neutral as you can get. Meanwhile, the long term, it has fallen a bit. It's at plus 16.9% now, after being as high as plus 27 back on May 21st. So the last couple of weeks has brought it back down to earth a little bit. I'd still love to see both of these lines below zero as a great sign that we are bottoming, and it's a perfect time to buy. Just like we saw when it was max fear time on April 9th or so. 8th, whatever your time zone was. So overall, it's neutral to just slightly concerning, depending on the time frame you want to invest.
That makes sense. Yeah, it seems like we got to give some more time for all of these things. Maybe it's a week or 2 weeks to look back and see where things find their this definitive position, I guess. And then one of the other things we looked at was ETF inflows and things along those lines. I think I saw reports that there has been outflows.
Correct. Yeah. So 3 or 4 out of the last 6 stock market days, not including the day we're recording, Friday, we're seeing more money moving out than moving in. And this is actually some pretty sizable outflow data here. The dates on my chart are actually 1 day delayed. So when I'm highlighting this May 28th candle, it's actually May 29th data, etc. But either way, you look at May 29th, $340.7 million moving out in net. The next day, May 30th, just about $600 million moving out. The next day, $267.5 million moving out. That's June 2nd. And then yesterday, June 5th, $261.7 million moving out. The one inflow day was June 1st, and that was about $368 million. And then a very small one the next day, June 2nd, June 4th, which was $87 million. So a lot more outflow than inflow. That's definitely a net of over $1 billion over the last week or so.
Interesting. So if we're looking at some of the historical patterns, it seems like we may have room to go down a bit more for Bitcoin before we find some sort of bottom and then keep going higher.
Yeah, as you know, we don't take definitive stances or give investment advice, but based on the metrics we're seeing now, it's kind of a wait and see combined with a little more concern based on where we're at. But that said, we're already retraced, give or take about 10% from our all-time high, maybe 11%. And when that happens, you're in a position where you could easily buy at a justifiable position if you're on the short-term trading strategy and you want to just try to see if you can get it back up to 105 or 106 or so and then take some profit. There's argument that we could see that over the next week. But from a mid and long-term perspective, until things change a little bit, I still don't like that the 365-day MVRV is as high as it is. And I definitely don't like that there's a lot of money moving out of ETFs. That's a pretty big surprise, seeing especially this level coming out.
Interesting. Yeah, I could be absolutely wrong, but I have a feeling based on certain metrics like this, there's more downside. And my thesis overall is that bull market's not over. But once again, I don't have a crystal ball, but it seems like there's definitely a cool down period here. And I don't know what the catalyst, sometimes there's a saying that show me the charts and I'll tell you the news, right? Price is going down, you got negative news, but then it bottoms out, starts moving up, then the price turns positive. I mean, the news turns positive. It's interesting how all that works.
Yeah, I mean, markets are constantly designed to maximally punish the emotional traders out there. So right now, as we saw, there's kind of a mixed reaction. Traders are kind of equally bullish versus bearish. Once some catalyst comes out, Elon makes some even bigger bombshell about the financial standing of the country rather than just personal attacks. Trump comes out and proclaims another tariff demand unless his needs are met on the EU. Who knows? Those are the kinds of things that are going to swing emotions all over again, and we get another wave of super greed or super fear, especially if that news comes out and then you see the price initially react and then people start to associate it with like, okay, this is positive news. And if they all think it's positive, that's when it becomes a negative story. I know it sounds weird, but that generally is how it works.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. What are you seeing on the Tether supply side of things? And I know that's something we monitored, the supply and exchanges.
Yeah, so I'll do the overall supply and exchanges here, and I'll also add the ratio of its overall supply on exchanges. And we'll just look at the last year. And it's pretty jarring, actually. The amount of supply and exchanges has fallen since its peak just about 4 months ago, February 5th. We've seen about $10.21 billion worth of Tether moving off of exchanges, and about 13.95% of all Tether moving off exchanges. So this is indicative that there's just less buying power on exchanges at the moment, and the trend really has not stopped.
And would you be able to zoom out on that chart, like let's say for the past year or so?
This actually is the last year. I can go way back to like 2020.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm curious, like, what's the pattern here? So
it's mostly moved up, especially in late 2024. Like this was right before Trump got elected. And then it just surged all the way up until his inauguration. Even a couple of weeks after is where it topped. And then it just completely reversed course. But yeah, overall, over the last 5 years, I mean, we saw $1.2 billion worth of Tether on exchanges the first week of June of 2020, 5 years ago. And now it's 34.2 billion.
Wow.
I mean, that's just insane. An increase of 2,737% more Tether on exchanges now, even with this drop.
I'm hoping to see that number V-shaped recovery happen where it's at right now. Because if it keeps going down, that's not a good sign. If I'm looking at this chart and I see, how it was declining in December 2022, and we know that was the peak of the bear market with FTX and much more.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. I don't think this is the most correlative metric in the world, but you can see that it's a bit lagging. So like if prices start to drop, people wait and then react to the price dropping and start taking money off there, and then prices reverse, and then people react to that and start bringing money back on exchanges. So it's kind of like an emotional metric in a way, where people see what direction markets are going and then decide whether they want more money on exchanges to buy or to take money off because they don't intend on buying. So all it takes is, another tease at an all-time high, and you'll likely see, Tether start to come right on back because people want to get in on the action and pray for 120 and beyond.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. See, I love looking at all these different data sets, and even when it challenges like your thesis, right? Like I have a certain thesis based on certain metrics and signals, not emotions, but then you look at something like this and you're like, did I miss something, right? Or this is something I really need to take into consideration and weigh against the other signals. So very, very insightful.
Yeah, well said, Tony.
How about we take a look at some altcoins? We could maybe start with Ethereum. That had a bit of a run, nice big run up, but then it took some of it back. Well, not much taking it back. It's consolidating. Obviously the market is down right now.
So there have been a few weird anomalies going on with Ethereum as of late. For one, it just had its biggest circulation spike in about 4 months. And this was right as prices started to go down. I think a lot of people were picking up on, this was related to Bitcoin, but I think it affected all markets a little bit. But Bitfinex apparently made some big moves. I can't confirm for sure. I know this biggest transaction that happened on June 2nd in this post we put out yesterday was related to Bitfinex. We decided to play it safe and just call them all unknown wallets, but the actual Bitcoin Explorer refers to this as a Bitfinex address moving just a ridiculous amount of Bitcoin off of their exchange. And then I think there are rumors that these were also Bitfinex. So 3 of the largest transactions the largest over the past month were all at the beginning of the month. And this correlated with some weird stuff with Ethereum as well, where there was a massive circulation spike. We even see funding rate moving down a little bit. First time we're seeing, or at least temporarily, we saw more shorts than longs. So people are starting to show a little bit of doubt there. Not much whale activity. We're also keeping an eye on mean dollar invested age to see if some dormant coin movement starts to come back on the network. There has been a drop over the past 3 weeks. We're hoping for more because a big drop in mean dollar invested age would indicate that the network's getting younger. Therefore, more tokens are coming back into circulation and can quickly cause utility to rise and drive up prices. It's at least flat now after this long stretch. You can see how it was just going up and up and up and up. And then finally on this huge rally in early May, dormant coins began to move, tried to spark a bull rally, but I think it was a bit stifled by Bitcoin's inconsistency.
That's interesting. I know recently there was some very big news with Ethereum being adopted as a Treasury reserve asset, where one company, I believe, is going to buy $400 and something million. They potentially can stake some. Joe Lubin got added to the board and all that. Obviously, we had the price spike as well. So, well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I saw some hype about that too. We saw the biggest spike in discussion about it on May 27th. Another big spike just a couple days ago, Wednesday. So people are paying attention to that news, and I think it would have a undoubted positive result if it goes through and becomes, a treasury.
For sure. Let's look at XRP and what's happening on that front.
So XRP's been kind of just treading water, a little like Ethereum lately, where it retraced a bit. Well, actually, it's had a longer retrace, I should say. It's down about 15% since its high about 3 weeks ago, May 13th. So I think a lot of people are itching for the third largest non-stable coin to make another move. It has been getting some circulation spikes, but not much else. The active addresses that you can see here in orange were spiking a lot in March, but they've calmed down heavily. And the coin's honestly really struggled since Trump's inauguration. Roughly, it's lost about a third of its market cap, 33.6%. I still, like it long term, as I know many others who watch your shows do. And it is a good sign that the MVRV here is below 0%. The 30-day average traders are actually down 4.8%. So if you're buying in now, you're doing so while the average trader is actually in pain over that short-term time span. So you can keep that in mind if you want to take the risk of, catching a falling knife, as they say.
Yeah, it's been really weird for altcoins. I think, as usual, Bitcoin leads the market and altcoins follow. But specifically with XRP, there was such a strong narrative against her getting kicked out, Ripple winning the lawsuit, Trump being pro-crypto, that it almost took it to this, not necessarily a ultimate top, but it overshot maybe what it would have potentially normally did or would have done. And then the cool down is happening now, and it's going to be a bit extended because it was such a big leader in Q4.
Right. Since it was so targeted by the SEC, it was the biggest beneficiary when crypto essentially won over the SEC, and Gensler was booted from his position because it was the most associated with the asset that is, trying to be torn down. So it had its time where it just really saw a lot of people rushing in to be a part of it, because the theory then was it had been suppressed due to Gensler and all of the lawsuit drama that was happening. So once that curtain was lifted, people jumped in, pushed up the prices a lot, and the pendulum kind of swung the other way, where I think a lot of people refer to it now as a buy the rumor, sell the news effect, when the lawsuit was essentially dropped. But now, we've seen both directions of the pendulum. Prices have retraced by a third. And there's an argument that it's actually pretty true to its where it should be relative to the rest of crypto now. It's still, if you go back, 3 years, it's still done pretty well because of that huge surge from November through January when it just about 6x'd, I believe. And, you know, now the question is, can it maintain that $2 level at least and start to crawl back up to 3 and beyond? I think it can. It's got a huge community of believers, people that I've talked to, that I've done videos with on sentiment that are very, very strongly in XRP's corner. So many smart people seem to see XRP as a great long-term investment and store of value. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, for sure. And even though it had this pullback, the charts honestly don't look horrible. And I'm talking like Trading View and things like that, compared to other altcoins that have retraced significantly. So while it has given back some of those gains, its chart overall still looks very bullish, and it almost seems to have taken, how should I put it, in like late 2023 to 2024, Solana was that altcoin that was getting so much liquidity. It broke its all-time high. You know, it was moving along with Bitcoin. That kind of flipped to XRP. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean XRP will continue in that driver's seat. It could move to SUI or Ethereum. I don't know, but overall, its chart doesn't look horrible.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I mean, these are all very large top cap assets you're referring to. So they all kind of take their moment in the sun. Ethereum kind of took like a 3-year timeout to the point where people were laughing at the fact that it was still the number 2 market cap asset. And then it finally was brought to life about a month ago and had its own time in the sun, not to the extent that XRP did at the end of 2024, but it at least started to gain on Bitcoin for the first time in a long time. So yeah, they all kind of rotate in and out based on a little bit of math and a little bit of news.
Oh, for sure. But let's take a look at Solana. I don't know what's happening on that front. I haven't heard much in the news about Solana, but curious how it's performing.
Yeah, so Solana's had a lot of social activity, and I think we talked about it a few months ago, but there does seem to be a lot of bot activity for whatever reason. And maybe that's due to the fact that it has such a big meme ecosystem these days.
Sure.
There are a lot of people trying to persuade other traders to buy the latest, you know, Solana meme coin, Bonk, Trump coin, whatever. But yeah, we saw huge social dominance spikes in March and April. They kind of went away, and now it's rising again. I'll take off the volume so we can just see social dominance. I'll make it a different color. Yeah, so it's actually getting like 10% of all discussions right now, which is a ton. That's usually about what Ethereum gets. And to me, there does seem to be a spotlight on it right now. If I go to our social trends page, and we go to trending words, or sorry, trending coins, that is, you'll see just how much of a lead Solana has over everything else. So yeah, look at just how big the sentiment, the overall discussion is for Solana compared to other coins right now. And it's mostly very positive, which isn't the ideal sign. You want to see a little bit of negativity, but the point is it's just getting a ton of discussion to the point where it's very likely, at least partly related to bot activity, but it does seem to be related to Solana's token utility, staking returns, swapping options, transaction fees, and tools. There's a lot of discussion on Telegram in particular, with the trend centers around Solana's price, market performance, technical analysis, ecosystem growth, DeFi and NFT activities, and future network upgrades with optimistic price forecasts for 2025. So it's just, there seems to be a lot of discussion and interest. Take that for what you will. I'd like to see the bullish sentiment that's currently showing from the crowd drop down a little bit, because people are just a little too optimistic about it to justify that whales are going to buy and push up prices. But we will see how it goes.
That's interesting. Even in this market, it still has that outlook, which is interesting.
Yeah. It's a weird time for Solana in particular. There just has been some strange behavior socially surrounding that asset in 2025.
Yeah, and to your point, you know, maybe a lot of it has to do with the meme coins and people launching all kinds of crap, pumped out fun and all that stuff, and that may be playing out in the bots, the social sentiment, and all that. It's interesting.
I'm curious, Tony, by the way, before we wrap up, what do you think about the MicroStrategy stuff and this thing with Stride? Are you following any of it?
Yeah. So I'm all for companies having a Bitcoin corporate treasury as long as they do it the right way. And what I mean by that is if they take some of their cash on their balance sheet and buy some Bitcoin, I am totally fine with that. Even if they raise a little bit of debt, kind of the MicroStrategy playbook, that's okay. But I'm worried. I'm putting up the red flags that I believe Michael Saylor is taking this to the extreme amount of leverage. And now you have this, the SCRD. So he's creating another way to just pile on the leverage here, different tranches of leverage. And I feel like there's going to be some sort of blow up. I don't want there to be a blow up, but I'm concerned. The amount of leverage, we've seen this in TradFi, it usually doesn't end well.
Yeah, he's certainly maybe the most polarizing guy in crypto, if you don't count Trump and Musk, because of their association with crypto. But his strategy is certainly bold. He dropped the word micro fittingly. And I think it's interesting and extremely, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Aggressive and ambitious. That's the word. That I think is showing just how confident he is in Bitcoin's future. The question a lot of people have is he over leveraging so much that there could be a drop that causes too much of a bump in the road before Bitcoin eventually gets to those $1 million price levels that they get to one day? Because anyone who's been liquidated before on a 10x or more kind of leverage, maybe they did their 10x when Bitcoin was at 20K, and they were right because Bitcoin's above 100K at the time of this recording. But if you try to get too aggressive on your way up with your investment, you can lose it all. And that's with someone like Saylor, who owns billions and billions of worth of Bitcoin. That can create some chaos for the entire crypto market if for some reason he gets liquidated at prices none of us will ever know until it happens.
Yeah. And I'm hoping it works out for him, man. Because I think a collapse with anything MicroStrategy, it's going to be bad for the entire market. So I don't want that to happen. I'm looking at it and I'm like, when does it stop? I understand, you're bullish on Bitcoin and obviously bearish on fiat. But at a certain point, this thing is all cyclical. There's going to be a bear market. And if you prop up this thing so much with these different stock products and, to buy Bitcoin and raise all that debt, I just feel like it just takes something that could make it all collapse.
I agree. And Arkham revealed their wallets last week as well, which was interesting. I don't know if that was the best thing for crypto. They certainly were diligent about not revealing their wallets, but something leaked that caused Arkham to get a hold of them. So now it's public information if their crypto ever moves. I did a little bit of digging, not enough to do a research report on it, but I did find that most of their big wallets just had massive amounts, like thousands of Bitcoin moving into each one of them 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they haven't moved ever since. So everything that Saylor says he's doing seems to be true on the surface, but there are so many different wallets when you're talking about billions of dollars. Most people don't hold them all in one. MicroStrategy certainly has broken them up. So I don't know. It's such a unique and interesting saga going on there with Saylor and strategy, and there are people who know more than I do about it. But I'm always just curious what other, crypto experts like yourself are thinking about it.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this, but I had tweeted about it where he came out and said he doesn't believe in proof of reserves. I am in total disagreement. I believe this technology and what the ethos of Bitcoin and so forth, I think there should be some sort of proof of reserves. If you don't want to release everything to the public as far as your wallet address, maybe bring in a third-party auditor and big four firm that says, hey, they have the Bitcoin. They say they do. It's not paper Bitcoin. Then okay, I agree with you there. But I don't like his stance on, I don't believe in proof of reserves and so forth. And then you had like Jack Mallers do the complete opposite. And I shouted out Jack Mallers, like, I forget his company's called 21, I believe, that they formed to buy Bitcoin. And he's like, here's the proof of reserves. We have the funds that we say we have. And I believe in that transparency.
Yeah. I think that's a well-founded way of looking at it. It's just, I think people know that that they have a crap ton of Bitcoin's overall supply now. And for the most part, maybe he's looked at more as a hero than this weird, goofy guy who's just gambling, making the ultimate gamble experiment. But, I do think that people are, especially when prices go down, they start to turn on him a little bit. And they talk about how he's a little too leveraged. This is scary. What's going to happen if you're liquidated? So he's like the ultimate meter for people as to whether markets are moving up or down. If it's going up, he's a hero. If it's going down, he's like a crazy kamikaze gambler that could wreak havoc at any moment.
Yeah. And I personally, I'm not viewing that. Like, I was happy that he was the first mover, and he, he was certainly brave of him and innovative of him to do that. And certainly happy, but I never used him as a benchmark. I know a lot of Bitcoiners, sometimes they treat him like this god. And I'm like, dude, like, don't do that. Okay. The Bitcoin doesn't need somebody like that, in a sense. Right.
Yeah.
As an asset, it is amazing, and we can all participate, but we don't need to be like kissing Saylor's ass saying, keep buying more Bitcoin, or like, no. Right. And then the thing that worried me, though, is just the amount of debt. As I saw, so he kept going. He's become like a Bitcoin addict. Like, I need to keep buying. But it's dangerous, man, because it's not like he's just using the cash on the balance sheet. He's going out there raising debt, and now he's doing all these different things, and that has me a bit concerned, man. But like I said, knock on wood, everything goes well. Nothing collapses, because that'll be bad, and there's no major blow up.
Yeah, I mean, let's just hope for a little short-term rebound between now and the next time we speak. I think that's what most people watching this video are hoping for, and we're right there with you. We're happy when crypto is moving up. It's good for our businesses, and it's good for our overall content when we can celebrate more and more gains. So let's get back on track soon.
Brian, I know the last few episodes when we wrapped it up, I kept saying, hopefully by next time we see each other, Bitcoin's pumping. I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna do the inverse. Brian, I hope the next time we chat, Bitcoin is down.
I like that. You're admitting that you're the counter indicator. It's best to just just like Alcoholics Anonymous. The first step is admitting that you're the reason that prices are going the opposite direction.
I'm a bear, and I hope the price crashes.
I like that. You guys should totally believe him.
All right, Brian. Good stuff, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. Good chatting.